Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and today I'm joined back again with Flex Shane. All of his links are down below in the description. Make sure to check out their Twitter, their podcast. It's very good. I listen to it pretty much every single week. It's part of my weekly routine, so thank you to him for coming on here. Today we are going to be talking about rookie running back JK Dobbins. Now, right now, we have no idea where he's going to fall in the NFL draft. That's a month from now. Will the draft even happen? That's not even a question for this video, but it may not happen somehow. But JK Dobbins of The Ohio State University, this year, or last year, I should say, he played 14 games, 321 total touches, 298 rushes, 2,000 rush yards, 21 touchdowns, which is the second highest on this list I have. He tied Jonathan Taylor, and he had 29 targets, 23 catches, 247 receiving yards, and 2 total receiving touchdowns. So that makes him have 23 total touchdowns on the year. JK Dobbins was an absolute freak last season. He's been a freak probably 2 years in a row. This guy's insane. I love watching him as well. I don't watch as much of his tape as these other guys, and he had 2,248 total yards, which is a lot, and is actually the most on this list. He had 100 more yards than Jonathan Taylor. So what are you thinking about JK Dobbins? What do you like about JK Dobbins?
Jeez, I guess the better question is what's not to like about JK Dobbins, right? I mean, he's a beast. Like, you just wrote off his stat line, but I think context matters, right? And we've been talking now about some of his other running backs that who we believe to be some of the top prospects, and the fact that he plays at The Ohio State. I mean, they've got, according to Football Outsiders, they've got the 8th ranked offensive line. It makes a difference, right? I mean, you watch a lot of his tape, and there were just absolute gaping holes. But the thing is, he was also able to take advantage of them, right? One of the things I really like about J.K. Dobbins is that they also would line him up in the receiver in the slots, and he did show that he was able to catch the ball as well. And the thing is, he did have good vision. If he was able to see that there was a hole, he was able to do that first really quick cut, and pretty much he would have his breakaway speed. One of the I guess the question marks with J.K. Dobbins is that he didn't really test at the combine. I think he did like the bench press, and then he did the weigh-in, and that was pretty much it. So there's that question mark is, okay, how does he stack up athletically, you could say, versus some of these other prospects? But it was when he was in high school. When he actually attended, it was like the Nike Spark. I don't know, it was like, yeah, exactly, the Nike Spark school, and he was like a 99th percentile athlete coming from high school into college. So you take that information, and then you watch the tape, and you say, oh shit, like when this guy's got open field, he's not being caught. So that he's quick, that he's got burst, that he's fast. So would it have been nice for him to test at the combine? Yeah, probably. Unfortunately, there probably is not going to be a pro day, so it's not like he's going to be able to go and put up these numbers in another setting, in another environment. But when you look at his production on the field, you look at the fact that they used him as much as they did, which means they trusted him. I mean, he's a beast.
Yeah, pretty much. This guy is he's the 3rd best in the class based on what we've been looking at, but that's short selling him. He is very, very good. Now, I talked about this in every video where we talked about the running back, so if you guys want to check that out, Jonathan Taylor and Swift are down below in the description. So we're to talk about his pass catching ability now. He caught 23 balls on 29 targets, 247 receiving yards. Now, do you think that he will be one of those guys in the NFL who's catching a bunch of passes? Maybe, well, like Zeke now. I mean, Zeke at the beginning, he wasn't catching anything, but things like that. What do you think?
Can he catch the ball? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, on multiple occasions, Ohio State would line him up in the receiver position. He didn't really get as many targets, but the reason that matters is the fact that they know, again, defenders know that he can catch the ball because he's shown that he's able to catch the ball. He's got about, it's a 79% catch percentage, which is anything around that 80% is what you look for. And it just shows that he can be trustworthy. It's going to depend on situations. I mean, right now, if I had to stack it up, I'd say probably JT is my number 1, DeAndre Swift is 2. And then it's a toss-up between Cam Akers and JK Dobbins. But if Dobbins falls in the right spots, he can catch the ball. He can be a 1st and 2nd down back. Like, he could be a 3-down back in the NFL. And we talk about landing spot dependent. If he falls in the right spot, if J.K. Dobbins goes to a city like Seattle where they are saying they want to run the ball, and that's just how they build their offense, I would argue that JK Dobbins could be the second RB off the board.
Okay, so does Chris Carson not scare you at all? Because I still like Chris Carson.
It depends, right? I mean, listen, I can't take credit for this statement, but essentially NFL teams lie to us all the time. They say one thing and then they do something else.
Oh,
The
all the
only
time.
time that they really tell us the truth is when they put their money where their mouth is. It's on the field. They say they're going to use a guy for 15 touches a game. If they use that player 15 touches a game, they're telling us the truth. If they're telling us how they want to manage their team and how they actually want to run their team, if they go and they draft a JK Dobbins in the early second round or middle second round, then that's telling you they don't necessarily trust a guy like Chris Carson. I think Penny's dust, by the way. Like,
Oh, so do
probably
I.
not going to be, yeah.
I mean, I drafted him last year in all these fantasy leagues. He sucked. People told me that he was better than Carson. I was reading, listening. Everyone tells you he's better than Carson. That guy's as injury prone as it gets, just like Chris Carson, it seems like.
Well, that's the thing. Well, so I'm pretty sure Penny's going to miss at least the first month of the season, what they expect just with his recovery. And then Chris Carson was battling injuries around the end of the season as well. So he's not exactly a beacon of health. And look, I would say Chris Carson is good because he's a Seahawk. If he was on any other team, he's kind of a plotter. I don't love him. If they go and they draft a guy like JK Dobbins, it's because they want him to be the starter and not Chris Carson.
Yeah.
So no, if they draft him, I believe it. Pete Carroll's telling me he wants JK Dobbins to be his boy. So that's it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, okay. That was something you brought up before. Obviously, you said he can play out wide at the wide receiver position as a running back. Now, wouldn't it just be funny if just like Alvin Kamara, they decide not to put a corner on him and he just dusts these guys? Because that's my favorite thing about Alvin Kamara, when they just decide to put some random fat guy that they think could cover Alvin Kamara. That just doesn't happen. The dude just gets absolutely ran through it. It's so funny. Alvin Kamara is amazing. But now you comped him to he doesn't even have
JK Dobbins doesn't have a comp because he didn't test.
Okay. All
but
right.
Look, so in terms of his profile, he is 209 pounds, 5'10". A little bit less weight. I mean, I generally like to say right around that 215-pound mark is where you'd really want your like 3-down workhorse running backs to be. So he's just below that, but that's not to say he couldn't put on a couple pounds of muscle, right, going into the season. And I don't think it would necessarily be at the expense of his speed score, but yeah, I mean, I kind of lost. Can't remember the question at this point, but he's the kind of guy where I think, you compare him to like an Alvin Kamara. He's not as small as Alvin Kamara, right? So he's not as quick. And if they line him outside, it could be like that they might even just have a linebacker cover him. In which case you think, okay, absolutely, I one-on-one against the linebacker, I'm going to probably take JK Dobbins at any point. But again, we don't have his actual numbers in terms of his speed scores. So maybe they think, okay, maybe I can get a guy like a linebacker to cover JK Dobbins. And then, oh shit, he just had a 30-yard reception because he did like an inside slant or something like that. So yeah, I think absolutely they could use him on the outside.
Okay, so in last video, we talked about how the percentage of team total snaps he's kind of on, and J.K. Dobbins, just like Jonathan Taylor, is absolutely dominating this category. 32.2% of total snaps for the team. Now, we talked about this for Jonathan Taylor, but let's just re-say it again. Why do you like the fact that they're getting this many snaps on the offense?
Really, what it comes down to is trust in the offense, right? I mean, when you have a guy that they trust to give the ball a number of times, and when we compare the top prospects, these top 4 guys, I like to look at the number of touches they get per fumble, and he was by far the best, where he had 107 touches for every 1 fumble. He had 3 fumbles last season. That means he's reliable, which means that we're going to give him the ball because A, he's productive, he can get the yards, but B, we can trust him to protect the football, which, listen, turnovers will absolutely kill you. Just look at a guy like Jameis Winston, who doesn't have a football team anymore. So if you can rely on J.K. Dobbins to protect the ball and to get you the yards, I think that's a fantastic trait to have.
Yeah, 100%. Now, do you look at age at all with these guys? These guys are all 21 years old, but does that weigh into it at all, or no?
Honestly, yes. Obviously, age matters, right? Especially when we're talking about Dynasty. And redrafted absolutely has no value unless they're like 33 years old. And it's a guy like Julio Jones who you're worried, okay, is this the year that he's going to fall off the cliff? later in their careers it matters. At this point, not really. I mean, people are they like to look 4 or 5 years out, but I think that's kind of, you're not really doing yourself a service, because in Dynasty, I think that if you're looking at a 2-3 year window, that's really what you want to focus your attention on. And when a running back is this young, 21 years old, I don't think it's something that you really even need to consider. If a guy is 21.5 versus 21.2 or something like that doesn't really make a difference in my decision making.
Okay, so we're still talking about age here. Does breakout age have anything to do with anything? Because to me, it really doesn't, unless you're talking about a wide receiver, because some of these wide receivers, they'll break out their senior year and then they just absolutely suck or something like that. So JK Dobbins' breakout age was 18.7 when compared to the rest of the field that we're talking about. Jonathan Taylor, 18.6, Cam Akers, 18.2, and DeAndre Swift, 19.6. So he's about in the middle there. Does that have any effect that he broke out when he was 18 or no?
I think it does make a difference. Absolutely. And the reason it makes a difference is because you want to know at a young level, are these guys able to produce at that next level, right? So coming from high school to college, if they are going to be on the field and they're going to break out early and then call it either their like a rookie or sophomore season, or I should say freshman season, that matters versus these guys who don't really break out until their senior year. And then you wonder, okay, was it an anomaly, right? Can he do that again at the pro level? From a wide receiver perspective, I think Brandon Ayuk had like a late breakout age where he was only productive really in his senior season. Mm-hmm. And that creates question marks because it's, okay, can he replicate it? So yeah, it does absolutely matter.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I see that stat brought up all the time, and I've never really even thought about how it would matter, but that makes a lot of sense now. When looking at JK Dobbins, obviously, his college dominator rating was over 20% on this chart that you put up here. I could maybe put it on the screen. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but 20% plus, is that very good on this chart that we're looking at here?
Yeah, I would say 28% is good. I mean, 40% is fantastic. Like, that's considered elite. Mm-hmm. Probably anywhere between 25 to 30% is what you really, really want. I mean, you compare that to a guy like DeAndre Swift, who was only 21%, but that has a lot more to do with usage, which, check out the DeAndre Swift video if you want to talk about that. But I think right around 28%, like, that's what you want. If it's like 5%, there's question marks.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, do you got anything else on Mr. Dobbins here before we end the video?
No, I mean, Dobbins is a guy who, again, going back to the fact that we're not going to have any of these sort of advanced metrics, unfortunately, because he didn't test at the combine. But I would say don't let that scare you off. Please don't troll and pick a guy like A.J. Dillon or Zach Moss ahead of J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins is in the conversation for one of these top 3-4 picks in terms of the running back class. And frankly, he's going to be very, very good. So don't be afraid. If he lands in the perfect spot, I would argue he's going to be your 1.2. So wheels up for JK Dobbins.
All right. Sounds good. So thank you for coming out here, Shane. As always, click that subscribe button down below on the channel. Click all of his links down below in the description. It really means a lot that he came on here. So thank you to him. That's all pretty much. We are done here. There's going to be one more video left with Shane about Cam Akers. So if you guys want to watch that, that'll be out either tomorrow when you're watching this or a couple days from now. But thank you all for watching. I love each and every single one of you. Make sure to have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.